Hey, it's Mo Salim here, coming at you from a random park slash forest here in Medellin, Colombia. And what I want to talk to you about today is a little known factor that the cutting edge of nutrition science is finding to be the most important aspect of healthy eating. Now, this is something that the big pharmaceutical companies, the medical industry, the fitness industry, they do not want you to know about this, because if you did, you would stop relying on prescription meds, you would stop jumping from one fad diet to the next, and you would finally have the information that you need to achieve the health, energy, vitality, and body that you deserve. In this video, I'm going to go over this little known aspect of what it means to be eating healthy and how it's completely changing our definition of what it actually means to be a fully functioning human being. All right, so the first thing to understand is that you, me, and everyone else, we are actually not only human beings. All right, we are superorganisms. What do I mean by this? Well, latest science has actually found that on our skin, in our mouth, in our lungs, in our gut, all in and around the human body, there are actually millions of communities of microorganisms that are living there, right? These microorganisms are bacteria, fungi, archaea, all of these tiny little organisms come together and are collectively referred to as the microbiome, all right? Now, why is this important? Well, it's been shown that for every one human cell that we actually have 1.3 bacterial cells, all right? And in terms of gene expression, the bacterial cells actually express hundreds of times of more genes than our human cells do. And this is why, if you want to be healthy, if you want to have the energy, if you want to have the vitality that you desire, then you have to make sure that your microbiome is functioning optimally, all right? And how do you do this? Well, stay tuned till the end of this video and I'll tell you exactly the number one tool that will analyze your stool sample and tell you exactly what your current composition of bacteria are in your gut, so that you know exactly what foods are healthy for you and which ones are not. All right? And that brings us to the second point, which is the most important rule of health, and that is bio-individuality. All right, what is bio-individuality? It basically means that there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all approach. Now, like I mentioned, we are not only human, we are superorganisms that have a community, actually millions of communities of bacteria and fungi and microorganisms that are living in and around our body. And the truth of the matter is that yes, any two humans have about 99% of the same DNA, all right? But when it comes to the bacteria, we only have about 5% of the same bacteria from one human to the next. And there are a number of factors that actually lead to this. For example, whether you were born through a C-section or whether you were born through a normal vaginal birth, whether you were breastfed or you were formula fed, your environment, whether you own a pet, how much you're sleeping, what your stress levels are, all of these factors actually come together to affect the microbiome and the communities of microorganisms that are living in and around our bodies, all right? And this is why what might be healthy for you might not be healthy for someone else, because of the unique set of bacteria and microorganisms that are inhabited within our bodies, all right? So how do you actually apply this information? Well, at the end of the day, you have to understand that you are your own sample size, all right? You are a sample size of one, and the only way to find out what works for you is through experimentation, all right? You have to experiment with different stuff. Yes, you can use the scientific research to find out about the best practices and such, but at the end of the day, you will have to experiment for yourself and figure out what works for you, what doesn't. And you can use tools like I mentioned previously. I'll tell you about the number one tool you can use to assess your current microbiome. But at the end of the day, experimentation is key, not only with healthy eating, but in terms of working out, how it fits your schedule, how it aligns with your goals. All of these factors actually come together and tell us that there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all approach. And if you want to achieve your goals, achieve the health, vitality, energy, body, all of these things, then you have to adjust your approach according to your particular factors, all right? And that brings us to the third point, and that is the most important rule of nutrition, all right? So like I mentioned previously, we're always talking about healthy foods and such like that, but at the end of the day, what's healthy for you might not be healthy for me, based on the unique set of gut microbiome. biome, all right? And what this means is that what is a healthy food, right? A healthy food is basically anything that does not cause inflammation. And this is why the number one thing that you need to focus on moving forward is to cut out foods that are causing inflammation in your body, because inflammation in the gut is actually associated and set as it basically sets the foundation for a number of diseases that can arise. And inflammation in the gut is actually seen as the root cause of a number of chronic diseases ranging from heart disease, cancer, Crohn's disease, depression, type 2 diabetes. All of these diseases are actually found to have root causes that emerge in the gut when it's been inflamed, and it's a imbalance of the bacteria that's living there, right? So the first step you need to take in terms of nutrition before you do anything else is to cut out the foods that are causing inflammation in your body. But going back to the second point of bioindividuality, what causes inflammation for you might not cause inflammation for me based on the unique set of gut microbiome, all right? I was actually reading a study in which half of the subjects actually had inflammation in their gut from eating spinach, right? Now, spinach is universally considered a healthy food, but at the end of the day, the research demonstrates that there's no such thing as a universally healthy food, because everyone varies in terms of their gut microbiome. That being said, there are some foods, although there are no foods that are universally healthy, there are some foods that are universally unhealthy, all right? Now, the prime culprit behind the chronic inflammation that we're going through these days is actually vegetable and seed oils, all right? All of these oils, whether it's sunflower oil, safflower oil, canola oil, all of these oils actually contain an omega-3 to omega-6 ratio that's completely out of whack, all right? So omega-3s are anti-inflammatories, omega-6s are inflammatories, and prehistoric data shows that basically we were used to having a 1-to-1 ratio in our diet of both of these fatty acids, so that it could actually maintain the inflammation and anti-inflammation, because a little bit of inflammation is required for our bodies to maintain function optimally. But all these modern cooking oils, vegetable and seed oil, soybean oil, all of them actually contain a ratio that's something like 16-to-1, all right? So historically we were used to eating 1-to-1, and now it's 16-to-1 in the favor of omega-6s, and the result is chronic inflammation, all right? So if there's one thing that you do, replace all these vegetable and seed oils with healthier alternatives like olive oil and avocado oil, coconut oil, even butter. All of these are much better alternatives because they do not cause inflammation, all right? And as I said, inflammation is basically the root cause of all chronic disease. So that is the number one rule of nutrition, and that is to stop eating foods that are causing inflammation. And that brings us to the second most important rule of nutrition, and that is to stop eating foods that cause your insulin levels to spike, all right? So insulin is a master hormone that is released by your pancreas when you eat some food that spikes your blood glucose levels, and it is released to actually remove the blood glucose, because excess amounts of blood glucose are toxic to your body. So it actually removes the blood glucose and deposits them, or uses them as energy, or deposits them into fat or muscle stores, all right? Now, insulin is very important, because if you have an insulin response that is completely out of whack, then not only will you be storing more fat, but will also lead to a number of other debilitating conditions, and in extreme cases it can also lead to type 2 diabetes, all right? So the second most important rule of health, or nutrition rather, is to stop eating foods that store your insulin levels out of whack. Now again, we have to go back to the number one rule of health, which is bioindividuality, and this means that what causes your insulin levels to spike might not cause my insulin levels to spike. So at the end of the day, you have to figure out what works for you. But there are some, like I said, universally unhealthy foods that that the science is unequivocally clear on is basically causing your insulin levels to spike. And those two foods are refined sugars and refined grains, all right? If you just take the steps to remove refined sugars and refined grains from your diet, then your insulin level, your insulin response will be that much better, and it will be that much easier for you to achieve your body composition goals as well, all right? And what I mean by that is that it's going to be much easier for you to lose fat and gain muscle. And that brings us to the next point, which is the truth about food quality, all right? So once you stop eating the foods that are causing inflammation, once you stop eating the foods that are causing your blood sugar levels to spike, that's when you can actually move towards looking at food quality, because those two factors that I mentioned previously are way more important for your overall health, all right? So when it comes to food quality, obviously it's great to eat whole, unprocessed, natural foods, but at the end of the day, a lot of the current research on the topic of the difference between processed and whole foods is sponsored by the huge food industry giants themselves. So at this point, we have to use a certain approach to figure out how the quality of foods are actually affecting our lives. All right, so there's a doctor by the name of Dr. Rousseau. He's one of the leading functional medicine doctors in the world, and he wrote a book called Healthy Gut, Healthy You. All right, I highly recommend this book. But in it, he provides a framework for assessing how he actually looks at food quality and how it affects our life. All right, so he says that when there's no consensus in the science in terms of what's healthy or whatnot, he returns to the ancestral point of view. All right, so basically when he looks at artificial sweeteners, for example, they are a modern invention, and although the modern research is not exactly clear on the long-term effects that it has on the human body, it is a modern invention. So he goes through the point of thinking it as guilty until proven innocent. All right, so if it's a modern invention, like a modern food that could not be hunted, gathered, and wasn't being eaten like 100,000 years ago, then it is guilty until proven innocent. On the other side, if there are lifestyle practices that have been, used for thousands of years and the science is still unclear on the exact benefits of them, then he sees them as innocent until proven guilty because they have been used for thousands of years. All right, so when it comes to looking at food quality, some points to consider is first of all, factory farmed meats. All right, so factory farmed meats are, animals that are brought into a factory farmed environment are introduced to, first of all, an unnatural feed. All right, they're used to eating grass, but then they're fed like grains and corn and stuff like that. And secondly, they're introduced to antibiotics because they're getting sick from eating the unnatural diet. And thirdly, they're injected full of hormones, all right, to get the animals to grow as fast as possible. Now again, the research is not exactly clear on the long-term effects of eating factory farm meats and how it affects your health, but at the end of the day, the fact that these animals are going to an unnatural environment, given an unnatural feed, given hormones, given antibiotics, then Dr. Rousseau, through his framework, it would be considered guilty until proven innocent. And if you can afford it, then obviously opt for organic meats and organic animal products because they are not given these artificial man-made substances which are antibiotics and hormones. All right, and secondly is processed foods. And if you are buying packaged foods, make sure to look at the ingredients list, and the shorter the list is, the better. And if there's an ingredient in there that you can't pronounce, then it's probably best that you don't eat it. All right, so if there's a food that couldn't be hunted, couldn't be gathered, couldn't be fished, then it's probably best that you stay away from it because it is not what our bodies were genetically evolved to deal with. All right, so now that we've set a foundation for what it actually means to eat healthy, what does healthy eating actually constitute based on the gut microbiome and what affects it, let's move on to some practices that we can engage in order to set the foundation so that the foods we eat are most optimally digested and the nutrients from them are extracted to the best of their ability as well. All right, so the first thing is actually what I'm doing right now. Right, I'm in this forest/park right now, and there is a lot of research that shows that people who actually take regular walks in nature and people that are exposed to like forest and biodiverse environments actually have more energy, they have more vitality, they live longer, and they have less amounts of illness and chronic disease as well. All right, now this is actually a practice that ranges back to ancient Japanese times, where it was actually called forest bathing. All right, now why is forest bathing important and how does it actually help you live a healthier and more vital life? Well, it actually comes down to, as I said, the biodiversity. All right, when we take walks in nature, when we're exposed to all these different plants, grass, animals, all this stuff, we're actually taking it in through our nose, through our skin, and they're entering our body and actually contributing to a more diverse set of bacteria that ends up inhabiting our gut. All right, and the more diverse the bacteria is in your gut, the more optimal your digestion will be, the better you will be able to deal with inflammation and all the negative side effects as well. And at the end of the day, that is what we want. Right, a healthy functioning gut microbiome means that you will be functioning healthy as well. And when you take these regular walks in nature, it contributes to the diversity of it, and at the end of the day, like I said, it helps what we are all striving for. All right, so if you do have like a nature resort, like not a resort, like a forest or a park near a house, try to make a regular practice of going there, taking a walk, and just taking deep breaths in, just taking all the environment in with all of your senses. And there's actually scientific research to prove this now, that it actually leads to an improved quality of your life. All right. And finally, it brings us to the last point, which is managing your stress. All right. Now, an example that I really like of this is that, let's say you eat a Big Mac from McDonald's. All right. On the surface, yes, this is an unhealthy food because of all the processed foods, the refined grains, all of this stuff. Yeah, there's no one that will dispute that a Big Mac is unhealthy. All right. But there are certain situations that would result in your body digesting that same Big Mac differently. All right. For example, if you're on the beach with your best friends and you've seen them after like 10 years and you're in a good zone and you're just feeling really good about yourself, or you're with your loved ones, and like I said, you're just in a good vibe, and you eat that same Big Mac, your body will actually digest it very differently than if you are stressed out about your job, about your bills, about your family, about your car payment, or anything else. All right. So if you're stressed, your body digests food very differently than if you're chill and relaxed. All right. And this is a huge aspect of it, because it seems to be the case that the more stressed we are, the more dysbiosis there is in our gut, the more inflammation there is in our gut, and the more odds we are at for actually developing chronic disease. All right. So stress is something that we all go through. It's part of the human experience, and based on my personal observation and what I've gone through recently, every time I felt exceptionally stressed, it's usually because of something. All right. I don't feel stressed like this goes without saying, but this is after like you have your nutrition on point. When you have your nutrition dialed in, because at the end of the day, if you are eating refined grains, if you're eating sugar, if you're eating all these universally unhealthy foods, then it does cause inflammation in your gut. That can lead to anxiety as well. But given that your nutrition is dialed in, then your thoughts can actually lead to inflammation in the gut as well. All right. So we really have to learn how to manage our thoughts. And like I was talking about, my personal experience is that every time I've felt stress, it's usually a signal for me to do something. All right. I'm stressed about something that I foresee happening in the future. It's a story that I tell myself, but it's something about the future that is undesirable. And I basically, anytime I feel this, I just try to go to a quiet place, like just go inside, take deep breaths, close my eyes, and think about what action steps I can take to stop that undesirable situation from actually taking place. All right. So I look at stress not so much as something that I go through, but I look at it as something like a signal that tells me that, yo, there's something that you need to watch out for, there's something that you need to do. And at the end of the day, when you take massive action, then it is a pathway towards overcoming that stress as well. All right. Because if you're taking action, it's impossible for you, based on my observation, if you're taking action, then it's impossible for you to feel stress at the same time, because you're engaged in the activity that would not get you to experience the undesirable situation that you have in your imagination. All right. So definitely stress management is a huge one. This is why in most of my videos I talk about having a mindfulness practice in place. Whatever it is that you engage in, whatever activity that helps you feel relaxed, do it. But at the end of the day, know that the reason you're feeling stressed, if your nutrition is dialed in, is because you're worrying about a future that is undesirable. So rather than thinking about the undesirable future, think about what actions you can take to actually stop it from coming true. All right. So with that, all that being said, I hope that this video has provided you with some valuable and actionable information that will help improve the quality of your life. And if you learned something new from it, make sure to click the subscribe button below, because I release new empowering content just like this every single week. All right. Now, secondly, I talked about the #1 tool you can use to actually analyze your gut microbiome, and that tool is actually a company called Viome, Viome.com. You can check them out. It was founded by Naveen Jain, who is a billionaire. He's founded multiple billion-dollar companies, and his goal with Viome is actually very simple. All right. It's to make illness a choice, because like I said, all the latest scientific research is coming to the point that all chronic diseases actually arise in the gut. They actually arise from inflammation in the gut, and you can learn to manage this inflammation by getting a accurate picture of what your current gut microbiome is actually comprised of. And Viome is a home test kit. They send it to you. I think you provide them with a stool sample, and then they analyze exactly what your current gut microbiome is comprised of and exactly what foods would be healthy for you and which ones would not. All right, now I have not used Viome because it is only available in Canada and the US, and I am currently in Colombia. But anytime that I do end up going to the US for an extended period of time, I definitely intend on trying it out. All right, now I am an ambassador for Viome, so if you do decide to check it out and buy it at viome.com, then you can use the coupon code MO, M-O, and get $50 off your purchase. All right, I highly recommend that you check this out, especially if you're struggling with IBS or any other sort of gut condition which is causing gas or bloating or anything like that. Then Viome will definitely tell you exactly what your current composition is and exactly what foods you need to be eating to ensure the optimal health of your bacteria. All right, and finally, leave a comment below and let me know the number one habit that if you stop doing would radically improve the quality of your life. All right, because many times it's not what we should do, but it's really what we should stop doing that has the most significant impact on our health and our well-being. With all that being said, this has been Mo Salim, and I'll see you soon.